These are 12 sleep habits that shift as you get older, and most people never hear a word about them, from the way your body handles caffeine to what's sitting in your own medicine cabinet. Keep count as we go, because each one comes from real research, and every single one is something you can start tonight. Start with the first hour after you wake up, because that's the part of the day that quietly sets up how you'll sleep that night. Tip number 1 is light exposure, and getting it early, then again in the afternoon if you can manage it. As the years go by, your circadian rhythm starts shifting earlier, which is why you feel sleepy earlier in the evening and find yourself wide awake before sunrise. At the same time, melatonin production drops off gradually, weakening the signal your brain relies on to know it's time to wind down. Researchers studying older adults found that low daytime light exposure was tied to more fragmented sleep, and afternoon light, not just morning light, turned out to be one of the strongest predictors of consolidated, unbroken sleep. A separate study using blue-enriched light told a similar story. Morning exposure improved the stability of the body's rest-activity rhythm and cut down on fragmentation, while the same light in the evening did the opposite, stretching out the time it took to fall asleep and dragging down sleep efficiency. The fix is straightforward. Get outside, or at least near a bright window, within the first couple hours of waking, grab another dose of daylight in the afternoon if you can, and start dimming the lights as evening rolls in. Tip number 2 is watching your caffeine cutoff, and it's probably earlier than you'd guess. Your ability to clear caffeine slows down as you get older, because the liver enzymes responsible for breaking it apart simply lose efficiency with time, and that means caffeine now lingers in your system well past when it used to. A cup of coffee that never touched your sleep at 50 can genuinely wreck it now, even if you're drinking it at the exact same hour you always have. Research backs this up directly. Caffeine consumed even 6 hours before bedtime has been shown to noticeably cut into total sleep time. If your sleep has gotten worse while your coffee habits have stayed exactly the same, this is worth testing for yourself, so try moving your last cup earlier and watch what happens. Tip number 3 is resistance training, not just walking laps around the block. A randomized controlled trial in older adults found that 12 weeks of progressive resistance training cut the time it took to fall asleep, raised the percentage of deep sleep, and even lowered apnea events per hour compared with a control group that didn't train. A separate analysis pulling together 35 trials in older adults found resistance training combined with walking beat standard care for improving sleep quality, and in at least one study, morning exercise specifically helped people fall asleep faster than the same workout done in the evening. None of this requires a gym membership. Bodyweight moves, resistance bands, or a light set of dumbbells done consistently appear to be enough to move the needle. Tip number 4 is getting smart about naps, not necessarily cutting them out. The research keeps landing on roughly the same pattern. Naps under about 30 minutes come out ahead of both skipping naps entirely and napping long. One study that followed older adults for 5 years found short daytime naps under 30 minutes were linked to a lower risk of cognitive decline, while a much larger pooled analysis found that naps stretching past 30, 45, or 60 minutes were each tied to a noticeably higher risk of cognitive impairment. To be fair to the science, it isn't perfectly one-sided, because one study found naps somewhere between 30 and 90 minutes were linked to better memory recall than either skipping naps or sleeping past 90 minutes, which suggests there's a wider window of safety than a strict 30-minute rule implies. Where almost every study agrees is that once a nap stretches past 90 minutes, the risk climbs. As for timing, research on older adults points to early to mid-afternoon, somewhere between 1 and 4 in the afternoon, as the best window, since napping too late eats into the sleep drive you need for nighttime. Now let's move into your bedroom itself, because 2 of the biggest overlooked factors are sitting right there in the room with you. Tip number 5 is warming your bedroom more than you'd expect. Most general sleep advice tells you to keep your bedroom cool, somewhere between 68 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but that advice wasn't built with older adults in mind. A study that tracked 50 older adults for 18 months, using wearable sleep monitors and home temperature sensors across nearly 11,000 nights, found sleep was actually most efficient when the room sat between 68 and 77 degrees, noticeably warmer than what you'll typically hear. Once the temperature climbed above that range, sleep efficiency dropped by 5 to 10%. The likely explanation comes down to your body's aging thermostat. As you get older, your ability to regulate your own internal temperature becomes less reliable, so a slightly warmer room takes some of that burden off your body instead of forcing it to work harder. If you've been dutifully keeping your thermostat low because that's the standard advice, the research on people your age is telling a different story. Tip number 6 ties directly into that same idea, and it comes down to this. Keep your feet warm before bed. Circulation tends to decline with age, which makes it harder for your body to trigger something called distal vasodilation, the widening of blood vessels in your hands and feet that releases heat and lets your core temperature drop, one of the key signals telling your brain it's time to sleep. A study looking specifically at skin temperature and sleep onset in older adults found that warm socks and a warm foot bath before bed could speed up sleep onset in elderly people who didn't already struggle with sleep, though the effect showed up smaller than it did in younger adults, and it didn't clearly help elderly people who already had insomnia. If socks aren't for you, a warm foot bath works just as well according to the research. A larger analysis covering nearly 1,000 older adults found real improvements in sleep quality, and the best results came from water no hotter than about 40 degrees Celsius, soaking for at least 10 minutes, kept up for at least a week before judging whether it's working. Tip number 7 is a warm compress over your eyes before bed. This matters more than most people realize, especially if you spend a lot of time on a phone or computer during the day, because extended screen use cuts down how often you blink, and that slows the tiny oil glands running along your eyelids. Placing a warm compress over closed eyes has been shown to increase the oil layer of your tear film by more than 80% within 5 minutes, with even more improvement showing up by the 15-minute mark. Keep it comfortably warm, never hot, and 5 to 10 minutes is plenty, so there's no need to push much past 10. The connection actually runs in both directions. People with poorer sleep quality tend to show more disruption in these same eyelid oil glands, meaning eye comfort and sleep quality feed into each other rather than sitting in separate boxes. Tip number 8 is a gentler practice. Some people pair with the warm compress, and it involves covering your closed eyes with your own warmed palms for a few minutes before bed, sometimes called palming. Here's the honest picture on the evidence. This technique traces back to a 100-year-old method that made much bigger claims about actually improving eyesight, and vision science has since rejected those specific claims. Used simply as a short relaxation exercise though, warm hands, gentle darkness, no pressure directly on the eyeballs, it carries little to no risk as a way to ease eye strain before bed, and broader research on relaxation exercises around the eyes has shown they can measurably affect eye physiology. Think of it as a calming ritual before sleep rather than a proven treatment, and you'll be putting it to good use. Tip number 9 comes down to which side you sleep on, especially if heartburn or acid reflux ever gives you trouble. A study tracking sleep position alongside acid levels in the esophagus found people cleared stomach acid far faster on their left side, about 35 seconds on average, compared with roughly 90 seconds on the right side or 76 seconds lying flat on the back. The explanation comes down to plain anatomy. On your left side, gravity keeps the junction between your stomach and esophagus above the level of the acid, so less of it lingers and does damage. Back sleeping and side sleeping are both generally considered easier on your neck and spine than sleeping on your stomach, so if you're already a side sleeper, favoring the left may quietly improve your nights, particularly if reflux has ever kept you staring at the ceiling. Tip number 10 is investing in a pillow that actually matches your sleep position, since shape and height matter more than the material it's made from. A systematic review found that pillow height somewhere between 7 and 11 centimeters, paired with a contoured design, carried the strongest evidence for improving sleep quality and cutting down sleep-related pain. More detailed research narrowed it further. A pillow around 5 centimeters thick tends to work best for back sleepers, while side sleepers generally need something taller, closer to 7 centimeters, to properly fill the gap between the head and shoulder. A separate review found switching to a firmer, well-shaped pillow noticeably reduced neck pain, waking pain, and disability in people dealing with chronic neck issues. If you're sleeping on something flattened and years old, or stacking several soft pillows just to get enough height, this is one of the easiest changes on this entire list. Tip number 11 is refusing to ignore frequent trips to the bathroom at night. This becomes far more common with age, showing up in roughly half of adults over 60 and around 80% of those over 80. Most people assume it's simply a bladder or prostate issue and leave it right there. But here's the thing. In one study of patients with bothersome nighttime urination, at least a third turned out to have undiagnosed sleep apnea. That connection matters, because sleep apnea itself is drastically underdiagnosed in older adults, with one large study finding that over half of adults 65 and older sit at high risk for it, yet it gets missed constantly, partly because older adults rarely show the loud snoring people expect, and instead show up with fatigue, insomnia, or mental fog that gets written off as ordinary aging. If you're getting up multiple times a night for the bathroom, mention it to your doctor as a possible sleep issue, not only a bladder one. Tip number 12 ties the whole list together. Sit down and review every medication, supplement, and sleep aid you're currently taking. Several medications common among older adults are known to interfere with sleep. Beta blockers can reduce melatonin release and have been linked to nighttime awakenings and nightmares. Corticosteroids like prednisone can raise alertness and make it harder to fall or stay asleep, and taking them earlier in the day may ease that effect. Diuretics work best taken in the morning specifically to cut down on nighttime bathroom trips, and certain antidepressants can either help or hurt sleep depending on the exact drug involved. Then there's the sleep medication itself. Research on benzodiazepines and so-called Z drugs has linked higher doses to a real jump in the risk of falls, fractures, and stroke in older adults, which is exactly why medical guidelines recommend avoiding them in people over 65 whenever possible. None of this means stopping anything on your own. It means sitting down with your doctor or pharmacist, going through everything you take, including anything over the counter, and asking directly about timing and safer alternatives. That's 12 changes, and every single one of them starts tonight. If you want to know the 5 sleeping mistakes that quietly undo everything you just learned, along with 3 more fixes to make it stick, go watch 5 sleeping mistakes dumb people make and 3 tips for better sleep next.